Yeah, so today we will discuss concurrency. Concurrency is one of the important feature of programming languages in nowadays, as the hardware resources that we have at our you know uh, hand is sophisticated. They are well equipped with we have multi-processor architectures available. We have processors with multi functionalities, and we have multiple ALUs for a single processor also being available, and we have a lot of advancements uh, from the hardware point of view already available at our hand, which can allow you to perform the concurrent execution of the processes. So eventually, that gives uh, you know an advantage for the programmer to make use of those resources, and thereby they can probably increase the efficiency and effectiveness of their program execution. So from execution point of view, uh, since every transaction, almost day-to-day life, you take any sector, whether it could be medical sector, aviation, or defense sector, military, or business sector, or, you take agriculture sector, you take health sector, any sector you take, you can see all are integrated with computers, uh, and most of the real-time issues are being now dealt through computer. You can see health issues or defense issues. Most of the real-time issues are now being dealt. Air traffic management, all that. So wherein probably the quick response is required from the task, because you need to take the decisions dynamically at the execution time, and if the execution is faster enough and to be able to produce the output as per your expected one, then we can probably take the decision. Sometimes in real time critical systems where milliseconds and microseconds also matters. So in such situation, then probably the execution of the processes uh, to be uh, done at very faster rate. So in order to increase the efficiency and reduce the execution time, you can make use of all the resources that we have available in today's life. Okay? So to make use of those resources, we need to have such kind of facilities from the software point of view as well, right? So the concurrent programming will allow you to achieve these kind of objectives. So how you can achieve the concurrency? As I said, concurrency is nothing but executing multiple processes simultaneously, right? So the concurrency which can you can perform at machine instruction level. This you can see from the hardware point of view, and high level language statement level. Language statement level also you can achieve with the help of certain programming languages like high performance Fortran and all. Unit level concurrency you can achieve with the help of threads that we have in Java and C hash. C also we have C++ also. Program level concurrency also you can achieve. That is process multiprocessing. So the program level and probably the statement level concurrencies, right? So these concurrencies are made available through the programming languages, much of our programming languages. Fine. So we'll see. Just take a glance of at the same time to ensure that how the hardware architectures are available at our hand, which will probably allow us to achieve the concurrency But in late 1950s, one general purpose processor and one or more special purpose processor for input-output operations were being made available. Like for I/O operation, you will be having some IOP kind of thing, and for communicating with internet, you were having some data communication processor, right? And then there was one general purpose. But then in early 1960s, you may have seen multiple complete processors were being available. Complete processor available in multiple numbers, which can allow the multiple programs to be executed concurrently, right? In mid 1960s, if you see the multiple partial processors used for instruction level concurrencies. So like SIMD and array processor, SIMD attach array processor and all kind of thing, right? So then we got multiple instruction and multiple data streams. With multiple processes available at your hand, you can allow the multiple instructions with multiple data at the same time, right? So all these kind of architectures have been made available at our hand, so that we can make use of all these resources to increase the efficiency and reduce the execution time. Fine. So here there are two types of concurrencies generally we find: physical concurrency and logical concurrency. Physical concurrency you can achieve by considering the processors as a multiple independent one, and then allowing the multiple processes and threads to be executed concurrently across this particular multiple independent process. And logical concurrency is basically could be seen in time sharing processor, like for example Linux operating system. Linux operating system is making use of round robin scheduling algorithm, where multiple processors are allowed to execute taking CPU for a quantum, for a time slice, right? And once they finish, then they need to wait until they get the next turn, so that the other process can finish their turn. So a turn could be of 2 units of time or 4 units of time. However, the operating system designer will set it. So that way, allowing the multiple processes to be executed concurrently by sharing the resources on time-based kind of thing, right? So such kind of concurrencies are already available as part of the operating system, right? And coroutines are quasi concurrency also. You can probably see that when you have multiple threads to be executed concurrently, but there is one single thread who is controlling the entire thing. For example, in Java, you can see you can divide the entire program into subprograms, where the subprogram can consider as a part of the program to be treated as a thread, and allowing these threads to be executed concurrently. Then there is a main thread you must be having, which is controlling the entire thread life cycle, okay? Thread system. The motivation for studying the concurrency involves different ways of designing software that can be very useful. Many real-world situations involves concurrency, as I have discussed some of the real-world situations, like air traffic management, defense, health sector, where concurrency plays a major role. It almost like indispensable, right? Multiprocessor computers capable of physical concurrency are now widely available. Since we have multiprocessor computer architectures are available, then and as well with allowing physical concurrency, then probably it eventually allows you to or motivates you to adopt the same in your program, right? Subprogram level concurrency. Generally, a process. Generally, you find this kind of concurrency can be achieved with two different things, right? One is process, another one is the thread. Okay, task and a process is a program unit, you can say, that can be in concurrent execution with other program units. Tasks differ from ordinary subprograms in that a task may be implicitly started when a program unit starts execution of a task. It is not necessarily suspended. When task execution is completed, control may not return to the caller. The tasks usually work together. I mean, the processes will have its own path of execution, but they will be allowed to execute concurrently, sharing the resources available, at your system. So the heavyweight tasks are said to be the processes. They will have their own address space, and they will have their own runtime stacks and all. But lightweight tasks, the threads of Java, C hash, we consider them as the lightweight tasks, which also work very similar to the processes, but they share the common address space. It means all the threads will have the same address space, and use the same runtime stack, right? When do you say a task is disjoint? If it does not communicate with or affect the execution of any other task in the program in any way. Fine. But then if you have task which is affecting the other task, then the problem comes, right? So where the problem comes in implementing concurrency is when a task may affect the other task, right? Because of both have been allowed to be executed concurrently, right? When does it happen? Basically, I'll give you one example where it can happen. If you have some shared resource, some data which is being shared by both these processes, right? Task A and task B. So if task A uses fetches the data, and then probably task B also have fetched the data. After having been fetched at this task, they may have changed the data. So when they change, whoever first reflect will not be reflected at the other side, right? Rather, what happens? Whoever probably do it at the end, which is being seen by the other task, will give will get the one who overrides. So it means, let us say, for example, task A and task B both have fetch a value of total, which is available in the shared critical region. So considering the critical region, right? So let us say the critical region consists of some variable, let us say total equal to 4, and there is some task A and there is some task B, and both have fetched it, right? When they have fetched that, for total equal to 4 value is available at its place, uh, and at B's place also, right? So after having been fetched this value by both of these tasks, A and B, A may have done some modifications and has changed the value from 4 to, let us say, 5. Okay, and this task B also could have changed its value from 4 to, let us say, 7. So then it has to update the same in the critical region. When it again deposits, let us say A has deposited, then A from A the total value comes as 5, and when B deposits, what happens? It gets 7. It means total gets overridden. So what will be the value now? 7. So see, this A value will not be reflected. Fine. Rather, B's operation will be considered. So this may result in consistency. If you want both the operations to be rather reflected, then whatever the value you get after this and this, that result must have been made available. Let us say, for example, when A is adding 4 to 1, and this is adding, let us say, the total to 3. So if it has to happen, let us say, if the sequence of this task, let us say, if you have said A, after A, B should execute, then total value must have to be what? 4 plus 1 also should be reflected. It means it must be 5 first. Then B, when it is trying to change this total value by adding 3 to the same, then the total must have to be now fetched as 5 for B, and that must have to add 3 to the same, then it has to get, say, 8. So the value that has to be reflected in critical region for total must be 8, not 4 or 7, right? So because A wants to add 1 to the total existing total value, and B wants to add 3 to the existing total value. Fine. So if this is the operation, then none of these operations get reflected, right? So that leads to inconsistency. So it means when the task, trying to access the shared resource, um, in order to restore the consistency, you need to allow the execution of those tasks which are trying to access that resource, fine, which may reflect the data of the same, should be allowed to be executed sequentially instead of simultaneously, right? Means they have to be allowed to be executed sequentially. This is what the solution for the problem which I have discussed. So why the problem is coming is when both of these tasks are trying to access the data, because it can be shared by both, and this operation all together have to be rather reflected, cannot be happened since both of them are going to carry out their operations simultaneously. But if I want both of their operations to be reflected there, then I must have to allow these processes to be executed sequentially instead of simultaneously. So that is what is synchronization, right? So here this problem has been addressed with certain synchronization tools, right? So the kind of problems that you may encounter with, one is the cooperation synchronization, another one is the computation. And the processes are able to share the resources with the mutual consent, then you can implement the cooperation synchronization. But when the processes are trying to compete to access the shared resources, then you will be implementing computation synchronization. Generally, in reader writer you find computation synchronization situation, and probably producer consumer can be implemented as a cooperation system. So these problems like producer consumer, or we have what you call reader writer, dining philosopher, right? So these are some of the critical section problems which you study as part of your operating system again, right? So this can be implemented with the help of the synchronization tools, right? And in reader writer as well, reader you can allow multiple data sets at the same time to access the shared resource, but while it comes to writing, you have to prevent the others when one is writing. Only then the consistency will be restored, right? Dining philosopher problem. In dining philosopher, let us say there are 5 philosophers, eating on a dining table, and there is a fork available on the left and right side, fine, and there is a spaghetti dish is put on table, and these philosophers states, if you can see, they think for some time, and when they feel hungry, they go for eating, right? But when they want to go for eating, they need to have both the forks made available for them, right? It means you have to ensure both the forks available for them. If he gets only left fork but not the right fork, he cannot go for eating. So whenever any philosopher out of it, right, willing to go for eating, we need to ensure that he will be able to find both the forks on his left and right side, fine. So how you can manage, because see, this is being shared by both the philosopher, right, who are available on its left or right. Similarly, this fork is also shared by both. So when he has left, then this cannot be made available for him, right? So we need to schedule in such a way that the philosophers, to be lie, to be lied in these different states, fine. And when the state of thinking, let us say from thinking, if he is taking a transition to hungry, fine. When he feels hungry, you need to plan in such a way that the forks required for him should be made available, right? So it's a kind of critical section problem, fine. So which rather can be implemented with the help of the synchronization tools, right? Similarly, producer consumer, which I have discussed in the last class as well. A producer who is producing some item in the buffer, right? And there is a consumer who is going to come and consume the same, right? So when consumer had gone to consume the item, if the item is not available, then consumer must wait until the producer produces the item. But we have to plan in such a way that none of these processes need to wait. Whenever they go for doing their operation they can successfully do it. Fine. So scheduling of the processes is what more important. So scheduling of the processes is generally being done in multi-process operating system with the help of process scheduling algorithms, right? We have first in, first out, and SJF, shortest job first, preemptive and non-preemptive kind of thing, right? All these I have discussed before. I'm just taking a glance at this thing. Okay, is this clear to all of you? So there are two types of synchronizations as I have discussed. One is the cooperation, where task A must have to wait for task B to complete some specific activity before task A can continue its execution. Like for example, in producer consumer, if consumer comes to consume the item in the buffer, if he does not find, then it must have to wait until the producer produces the item into the buffer, right? This kind of problem is said to be cooperation synchronization. Computation synchronization, where two or more tasks must use some resource that cannot be simultaneously used, right? Okay, like for example, in reader writer, if multiple processes want to write, right, in onto some variable rather, right? If both of them are writing at the same time, then their operation will not be reflected. As I have given one example before, right? For take total as an example, fine. Where total value was 4, and then A wants to add 1 to the existing total, and B wants to add 3 to the existing total. When both of them are being executed concurrently, what happens? The operations will not be restored, right? And those operations, none of their operations will be rather reflected in the total data, right? So such kind of problems associated with the computation problems, right? So either you take operation or computation in both of these problems, right? That is a problem which I have discussed is what again demonstrated here with an example. You can see total value is, let us say, 3, and there is a task A, task B, right? So this task A wants to add 1 to the existing total, but task B wants to multiply by 2 to the existing total. So let us say first it fetches as per the instruction cycle phases. If you see, first it fetches the instruction, then fetch the calculate the effective address, fetch the operand, execute the operation, then store the result. So when it fetches, first fetches and then execute, then store. So when it first fetches, let us say both are allowed to be executed concurrently. So task A when fetches it gets 3, and task B also when fetches it gets 3, right? And when task A go for an operation, adding 1 to the existing total, that becomes 4, right? But when task B wants to multiply total by 2, the fetched total value was 3 itself, right? It is not 4 because it was not reflected until when B was trying to fetch the total, right? It would have got only 3 because both were allowed to access it at the same time, and both could have got the 3 here at the same time when they have fetched it rather. So now when it multiply by 2, then what it gets here, 3 by 2 is going to be 6 here, 3 into 2 is going to be 6 here. Fine. So you can see when task A finishes store first, then total value will be stored as 4, and when task B finishes next, then total value gets 6. But you can see none of them is correct, right? If both of the operations have to happen, let us say first A and next is B, then what must have to be the value of total, since it is adding 1 to it, so 3 plus 1, then this is multiplying to the total by 2, so 4 by 4 into 2 is going to be 8 here. So the result of the total must have been 8 if we allow the process in a sequence of A and B, or if we allow the sequence with B and A, then what happens, the result must have to be 3 to the 6, 6 plus 1, 7. So either it must have to be either 7 or 8, right? If you go with sequence AB, you will see that total value should have to be 8. If you go with sequence B and A, then total value must have to be 7. But none of them you can see if you are allowing both of them to be executed concurrently, since the last value will be rather updated at total, which then you can find as 6. It doesn't come from any of the sequence. So this kind of issue. This is a computation synchronization, right? So in such situations, what you can do is you can schedule. So scheduler plays a major role here. It provides a synchronization. It requires a mechanism for delaying the task execution. So it delays certain tasks from being executed when a particular task is accessing that particular resource, right? The task execution control is maintained by a program called the scheduler, which maps the task execution onto the available processors. So if you can see what are the different states in which a particular task or the process may lie with is a new. First, when you create a process, it's set to be the new process. Then it will enter into the ready queue, or we say it as a runnable state. Then what happens? It will be allowed to execute when it was been scheduled. It means when it was given the processor. So that is set to be the running state. And during the execution, due to some reason, it may get blocked, waiting for IO or event to happen, or sometimes other processor, higher priority processes, who can preempt the processor from this particular process. Then also the existing process get blocked, right? So process may be even blocked as well during the execution as well, like because of these various reasons. And then again it can probably get back to again runnable state in order to finish its execution. Right? Like for example, Linux operating system, if you take where round robin scheduling algorithm is implemented, where after every time slice, you can see the process who is running will be blocked and then put into the ready queue back for the next turn to take the processor and go for execution. If it could have finished the execution, then it will be terminated. Right. So these are the different states in which you can find the process is lying. Fine. So this is all being taken care by the scheduler. So scheduler should be designed in such a way that the processes who may take transitions from different from one state to another state rather, right? So ensure that these processes could able to get the resources on time and could finish the execution. You cannot let certain processes to be unattended for a longer enough time. If certain processes are unattended for a longer enough time, what happens? They may lose its liveness. When it loses its liveness, then it may no longer be active. Even if the resource is made available, it cannot go ahead with its execution. Such state is said to be the dead state. Okay, so dead processes. So it can be dead. So these are the problems that you may encounter with liveness and the deadlock. Liveness is a characteristic that a programmed unit may or may not have. In sequential code, it means until the unit will eventually complete its execution. In sequential code, what happens? Every unit will go for its execution and finish its execution. But in concurrent, what happens when the tasks, certain tasks are being, unattended, as I said, right? It is because of various reasons. As I said, one example I'll give you: if you have preemptive scheduling allowed in your operating system, then what happens? The higher priority processes, when comes, they always preempt the lower priority processes. So let us say after a process who have arrived and could have got the resource after being scheduled for a certain amount of time, could able to finish its execution only a part of it, and then immediately higher priority processes have entered into the queue. Then what happens? This particular process who have entered much before the higher priority processes will not be able to get the processor to complete its execution. Then what happens? It may lose its liveness over the period. Fine. Then it may enter into a deadlock state rather, right? So it cannot complete its execution. So that is what exactly you need to address while you are basically allowing the concurrency. Ensure that all tasks should be executed, because in sequential you don't have an issue that any part of the code will not be executed. Every part of your code will be executed in sequential, but then in concurrent this is one issue that you may probably face because of certain processes losing their liveness, right? So you need to ensure that they should not lose their liveness and should be able to complete their execution. Fine. So the design issues for concurrency, computation and cooperation synchronization. So the problems that we have discussed, cooperation synchronization and computation synchronization, for which the solutions, of course, we'll probably discuss in the next slide. And how the scheduling of these tasks will be controlled is what more important in order to ensure the task should not lose its liveness. And how and when you are going to start and end the task execution is more important rather, right? So these are design issues you need to address. So here, with the help of these following solutions or mechanisms, we are trying to address the problems that we have discussed before. So some of these which probably we'll discuss in the coming slides. So semaphores, monitors, and message passing. These are three widely used synchronization tools available across many of the concurrent systems, fine, and concurrent programming languages, fine. So semaphore basically is a variable actually, right, which will have two functions like wait and a release. Okay, so a resource which is being shared by multiple processes, we generally call it as a critical region, right? So the critical region is being monitored through this particular semaphore, the other way around I can say, right? So semaphore is just a variable kind of thing. So its value initially 0. Let us say if certain process have entered into the critical region, then it will be incremented, right? So when it is incremented, it means someone is there inside the critical region. So others who will come to access the critical region at the same time, right? When P1 is accessing the critical region, and let us say P2 also could have come at the same time, or P3 also could have come at the same time, they cannot be directly allowed to access the critical region. Rather, they need to first check with the semaphore variable, right? So if the semaphore variable is greater than 0, fine. It means there is someone who is already executing. So they need to wait. Fine. So they need to wait here. Fine. If no one is there inside, then probably they can be allowed to execute rather, right? So this thing you can probably implement with the help of wait and release. So when a process who enters into the critical region will increment the semaphore, and then when get released, it will decrement. So that other processes who will come to enter into the critical region to access the shared resources have to check the semaphore to ensure that whether they can be rather allowed inside or not. Right? When someone is already there inside the critical region, then these are being prevented from accessing the critical region. So that way you can probably implement the semaphore solution for the uh, critical section problems here. Fine. And one problem of producer consumer I have discussed, of course, in the previous class. We can go through the previous videos where I have discussed about the same is mentioned. You can implement, the both cooperation and computation synchronization with the help of semaphore. Cooperation synchronization you can implement with the help of counting semaphore, and binary semaphore you can use to implement the computation synchronization. Binary semaphore you will have only two values for the semaphore. It could be either 0 or 1. In counting semaphore the value could be more as well, right? So basically for reader you can have the counting semaphore, and for writer you can have the binary semaphore. Okay, because writer when the code is allowed to someone to write, then the others have to be rather prevented from accessing in order to restore the consistency. So in such situation you can probably use the binary semaphore, and in cooperation like in producer consumer or reader problem, then you can go for counting semaphore, right? Fine. The code of the same has been mentioned and discussed before. I'm just taking a glance of it. Another solution to implement this cooperation and computation synchronization is monitor, right? Many of the programming languages like Concurrent, Pascal, Modular, Mesa, Ada, Java, C hash, they are adopting this monitor solution. It encapsulates both the data, shared data, and the operation into a single entity, like a class kind of thing, which we call it as an ADT. But it will restrict the access of processes from accessing this data. Fine. So each of this particular data that is available inside the monitor is implemented through a queue, actually, first in first out kind. So based on the arrival time, they will be able to access it. So when one is allowed, the others are being prevented from accessing the same rather, right? So that way, the monitors will allow the sequential access for the concurrent processes when they are trying to access the shared resource. Right. For computation synchronization, this is the best solution. Of course, for cooperation also, you can rather implement this. Fine. Another solution is message passing, like Ada and some languages uses this message passing as well. Of course, in the internet, if you see, probably many of the internet-based programming languages make use of this message passing for the communication among the concurrent processes, in order to have the communication to be sequential, so that the communication that happens from both the ends will be counted, considered, and granted. Okay, so of course this you can use it to model both semaphores and monitors. So in message passing, what happens is you will have, like for example, if you take from Ada point of view, Ada 83, making use of this message passing model, you will have an entry section, entry class, and you have a accept class, right? So what happens to enter into the critical region, the accept class must have to must have to be executed, and that has to accept the requests sent by the other processes to access the shared resource. Fine. So like for example, there are two processes. I've given you an example of doctor and patient. Both doctor and patient must be waiting for each of them, but then unless there is a communication among them, they will not come in contact with each other. So when they come in contact and the rendezvous take place, only then the communication will happen in a fruitful manner, right? So how does the rendezvous takes place? It can happen from either end. Doctor doctor can take an initiative or patient can take an initiative. For example, task example is the, let us say, process, server process or doctor process, and sender is the, let us say, client process or the patient process. So the task example, there is an accept clause of the task example. When it is executing, at the same time, let us say sender has sent the message and endeavor takes place, then probably the sender contact with the task example, the communication takes place. The execution of the sender can happen, right, by accessing the schedule. This is one way. Where what is happening? The task example is waiting relentlessly for certain client requests or the sender requests, right? This is one kind of endeavors to take place. And another way is where sender must have to wait. Fine. Task is busy doing some task. So task example is, let us say, busy doing something, and voluntarily when it invokes accept, only then the renders will take place. So the sender, when sends the message, during the message, probably task example must have been busy with some other work. Then sender must have to wait until the rendezvous takes place. So when the rendezvous takes place, only when task example will invoke accept clause, right? So it may voluntarily call after once it is free from busy condition. So once the accept clause is invoked and the sender message is already available there, it is running at that situation. So then rendezvous take place, then the execution of the sender can further happen, right? So one more example discussed is a server client example. Fine, many of the internet servers will have one thread who is always listening the client's request. It means they are willing to accept the connection requests that are coming from multiple clients. So whenever a client request comes, it creates another thread with the connection so that the client can have the dedicated connection with the server to access the shared resource of the particular server. And then immediately get back to listening to other requests. That way it happens, right? So this is a kind of a solution which has been adopted in server programming, of course, right? You can see that the same is demonstrated here with some graphics here. Task A and task B. When task A is sending certain requests, there is an accept clause at the task B. When accepts and when takes place, the communication and the execution of the task A will then start, right? So certain examples using ADA have been mentioned here, like maintaining the level controller of water. For example, the level reached to the almost overflow, then it has to raise an alarm or thereby to switch off the motor rather, right? So that kind of things you can probably implement using this kind of solutions rather, right? You can have multiple clauses of accept as well. It means you allow multiple clients to be connected and allowed to access the shared resources. That is what exactly we adopted at the internet, if you can see, right? You can listen multiple requests at the same time. Fine. So how it is being basically implemented here with the ADA syntax is mentioned here. When class is being used, when you check the buffer is full, then if the buffer is not full, only then you allow the depositing a new value into the buffer. Like for example, producer consumer problem, if you are trying to implement the classes and the programming constants that you may probably have to use it to implement the same as mentioned here. Okay. And another example here mentioned car wants to get its tank to be filled with fuel, right? So you can have multiple checkpoints. Like first it has to check to ensure that can find a room in island. Once it finds, then it has to again check whether it can find the place on the garage so that it can step on and then take its time to be fit. So here, multiple entries for a particular task to be executed rather than we can have, right? That is also been discussed here. And when the task is finished, then you will have a termination, state with the help of which you can terminate the task so that the other task will be allowed to execute that, right? So, and you can allow the preemption as well by allowing the set the priority to the processes. So pragma priority. So with the help of which you can set the priority. Generally, value ranges between 1 to 10, normal, minimum, and maximum. So higher priority processes will always preempt the resources from the lower priority processes, provided the preemption is allowed, right? When preemption is allowed, there is a possibility of deadlocks to occur. So no preemption is the best solution, but then if in real-time examples where certain real-time tasks have to be given more priority and they have to be executed on demand base, so priority preemption, if allowed, is well and good, and it's almost mandatory in case of real-time problems, rather, right? So ADA 95, if you see, that includes ADA 83 features for concurrency plus 2 new more features, protected objects. It has introduced a concept called protected object, where a more efficient way of implementing the shared data to allow access to a shared data structure to be done without rendezvous. See, in order to have the rendezvous to take place, some amount of time is needed to have certain messages to be rather exchanged between the processes, right? That can be rather overruled. So no, that time can be reduced if you can probably adopt this protected object. And asynchronous communication is also allowed, right? Fine, one after the other. So this protected object is similar to an abstract data type. Access to a protected object is either through messages passed to entries or as with a task or through protected subprograms. A protected procedure provides mutually exclusive read-write access to protected object. So it provides almost equivalent to computation synchronization, right? A protected function provides concurrent read-only access to protected object. Asynchronous communication allows you to select the certain structures and then allow them to be executed sequentially. Okay. Evaluation of message passing model of concurrency is powerful and general, and you can see this has been adopted in internet, of course. And protected objects are a better way to provide synchronized shared data. In the absence of distributed processes, the choice between the monitors and tasks with message passing is somewhat a matter of taste. For distributed system, message passing is a better model for concurrency. Now coming to Java threads. Threads also, a kind of process itself or task, right? But it's a lightweight process, I can say. It's a part of the program, you can say, right? All the threads will share the common address space, common stack space, but will have its own path of execution. Okay, and if you want a program to be executed at a very faster rate, then generally, when do you think that you want your program to be executed at a very fast rate? When your program is very big, okay? Your program is very big, and there are certain tasks which are recurrently executed. Then what you can do, you can identify certain parts of the program which probably needs more time for execution. Can consider them as threads and allow these threads to be executed concurrently, right? And with the help of thread scheduler, you can schedule these threads to execute. But then again, you will find the problems like cooperation synchronization, computation synchronization. You probably find the issues like inconsistency of data when the data being shared by multiple threads, like how when probably you are dealing with concurrent processes, right? A similar kind of thing, of course, here also prevails. So you need to adopt certain solutions again to implement the synchronization. So here, if you can see, Java is adopting, as I said, monitor mechanism with the help of synchronized keyword. So if you use synchronized prefix to any method, that will act as a monitor, and when that particular operation is being executed by any object, the other objects are being suspended from execution, so that it can access the shared resources and can able to do all its execution. Then after it leaves, only the other objects can rather access that shared resource to do anything on it, so that the consistency will be restored rather, right? So how you can implement, what are the libraries that you have in Java? Like we have thread library. So any class who extends thread will become a thread, and there is one run method you find inside the threads will have the executable part, right? And how is this run going to be invoked? With the help of start. So what you do is you create an instance of this thread class in the main method, and then you invoke the start method for the thread object. Start then eventually invoke the run method, which probably allow that thread to go for execution. Okay. So how the controlling of threads you can probably do with the help of certain methods like yield, sleep, and join. So yield is a request from running thread to voluntarily surrender the process, and sleep method is to basically block the thread for a certain amount of time, suspend from execution. Join is another method, is used to force a method to delay its execution until the run method of another thread has completed its execution. So when you want certain methods to be forcibly suspend, from its execution, you can use this methods, right? And preemption, if you want to implement in Java, you can probably do that by setting the priority. So generally, main method is also acting will act as a thread. Basically, in Java, though you have multiple classes, there must be a class who must be having main method, and that particular thread will be the main thread. And main thread priority will always be the normal priority. Normal priority value is generally 5 around, fine. And there will be minimum priority, maximum priority. Minimum priority is 1 and maximum priority is 10 in Java rather, right? So you can set the priority with the help of set priority method, and you can probably allow the higher priority threads to preempt the lower priority threads. That is being possible. So with the help of synchronized keyword, as I said, right, you can implement the synchronization, right? The kind of synchronization that we are implementing is the monitor kind of approach, rather, right? So if you want to implement cooperation synchronization in Java, you can probably make use of wait, notify all methods. With the help of this, you can implement the cooperation synchronization. Fine. Wait means you can, with the help of which, suspend the execution of certain processes when a particular process is in execution, and once it finishes, it can notify the suspended processes, so that the processes who are suspended can enter into the critical region to go for execution. You want to notify to a single one, then you go for notify. If you want to notify all, you can use notify all. So with the help of this, you can probably use cooperation synchronization. But if you see, the synchronized keyword is itself is implementing the monitor mechanism. So computation synchronization, you by default implement through this synchronize. But for cooperation, you can make use of these methods with the help of which you can rather implement the cooperation synchronization as well. Java supports for concurrency, relatively very simple but effective, but not as powerful as ADA tasks, because ADA tasks are equivalent to heavyweight and Java threads are equivalent to lightweight. Okay. So if you look at C# threads, they are loosely based on Java, but significant differences you can find in thread operations. Like any method can run its own thread, A thread is created by creating a thread object. Creating a thread does not start its execution. You must have to invoke the start method like how it happened Java. A thread can be made to wait for another thread to finish with the help of join method. A thread can be suspended with sleep, and you want to terminate, then you have an abort. This abort option is not there in Java, but in C hash, because of which, what happens, you can terminate certain threads. If you have certain dead threads, then they definitely will not progress. Why to lie inside the running environment? It is better to abort them. So with the help of this abort, you can rather terminate such kind of threads, right? So synchronizing the threads, you can do it with three different mechanisms here: interlock mechanism, lock statement, and monitor class. So generally, interlock class is used when the only operation that needs to be synchronized are incrementing or decrementing of an integer, right? Similar to semaphore kind. A lock statement is very similar to monitor kind. It's used to mark a critical section of a code in a thread that can be implemented with the help of lock followed with expression. Okay, and the monitor class, and here also is monitor class we have, which of course provides the same as monitor kind of code. It provides four methods that can be used to provide the more sophisticated synchronization. Okay, so these are the different solutions for synchronization we have as part of C hash. If you look at the evaluation of C hash concurrency, it's an advance over the Java threads. Any method can run its own thread. Thread termination cleaner than in Java because you have abort method. Synchronization is more sophisticated here since you have monitor kind of approach, with four different operations rather, right? And here statement level concurrency, if you want to achieve, many of the programming does not support, but there are certain programming languages set high performance program which have the supports. So objective is to provide a mechanism that the programmer can use to perform, is to inform the compiler of ways it can map the program onto multi-processor architecture. Like for example, you have multi-processor architecture in your system. Fine. Like nowadays we have dual core processor, we got quad core processors, we got octa core processor, we got hexa core processors. Right, you can see your mobiles are, the updated versions of mobiles. If you can see, they are equipped with octa core processor as well. It means 8 processors running concurrently in the background for you. It means each of them are going to execute some or other thing. So they are ready to execute. You need to give the task to them rather, right? So programming should be done to ensure that these all processes are busy doing some or the other task. Fine. So when the resources are available at your backend to make use of them and then making them busy doing some or the other execution for you, the program language also should have certain programming constructs of the same. So that probably here we'll discuss, with the help of this high performance Fortran. A collection of extensions that it has, which allows the programmer to provide information to the compiler to help it optimize code for multiprocess computer. So, the help of program, we are telling the compiler that delegate the task across the different processors, right? And specify the number of processors, the distribution of data over the memories of those processors, and the alignment of the data through the program itself. One example of the same is mentioned. For example, if you have n number of processors available in the background or in your system, then what kind of data you want to basically execute through this? Fine, you will be taking that respective data to distribute across this process. So these are the statements that you can see here, and where you need to align this processor to take that respective data for your execution. One example is mentioned here. You can see if you have real vectors, list 1 and list 2, these are 2 vectors, and integer vectors you have. Now let us say 10 processors you have, and you want to distribute the operation of these vectors on 10 of these processors Fine. You are first aligning, then you are going to distribute the same value, right? So the statement level concurrency you can achieve even through for all programming construct of high performance like this. You can use for all. You can mention the number of processors and the data kind of data you want to delegate across these processors to execute the same. Fine. Taking the overview and summary of the same what we have discussed today as part of the concurrency. Concurrent execution can be at the instruction level, statement level, or subprogram level. We said, right? So instruction level in the program or subprogram level, we have seen how we can achieve through the programming languages, right? And the statement level can be achieved through the hardware using SIMD and MMD kind of approaches, right? Physical concurrency, when multiple processors are used to execute concurrent unit, that is typically physical concurrency. There are two types of concurrency defined. Another one is logical concurrency. So concurrent concurrent units that are executed on a single processor, but then scheduled such a way that they can be able to share that processor as and when they require, and then able to finish the execution concurrently with the other processes, right? So, like time sharing operating system of Unix or multitask operating system of Windows, they are scheduling the processors to access the processor as and when they require based on certain scheduling mechanisms, right? And ensure that all these processes will execute concurrently and increase the throughput of the system. And two primary facilities to support the subprogram concurrency, we have seen computation synchronization and cooperative. So when you are allowing the concurrency, the problem that you may encounter with is when the shared data is accessed by multiple processes, the inconsistency of the data may result. To overcome that, we have certain synchronization tools available like semaphores, monitors, and message passing that we have discussed. And as part of the programming languages, they are adopting different kind of solutions for the same. That also we have discussed. And the typical, critical section problems like producer, consumer, dining philosopher, and reader writer problems also we have discussed, and how these problems can be fixed with the solutions also we have discussed. Either by taking cooperation or computation synchronization, which can be rather implemented through semaphore, monitor, and message passing mechanisms, right? And at the end, we have seen how high performance Fortran provides us the statement level concurrency by specifying the data which is to be executed concurrently by being distributed across the different processors. Okay. Also, we have seen, right? I hope this is clear to all of you. If any doubts, you can probably ask now on this.